I'm the villainess in the story of the real and fake rich daughters, yet everyone loves me, no matter what I do, I'm always right, and the heroine is my opposite, even in the eyes of the male lead, I am the one he loves most, she is merely a stand-in. It's not until the heroine dies tragically from cancer that everyone realizes how much they loved her. So, on my first day after transmigration, I took the heroine to the hospital for a checkup. Let's do a gastroscopy. Life is smooth and carefree for me, so I just wish you never get cancer again in your lifetime. The day Alice came home, our family sat down for a meal together, and the atmosphere was awkward. She sat across from me, looking dark and petite, utterly unrefined. Her eyes sparkled at the sight of the delicious feast on the table, yet she hesitated to reach for the food. Eventually, she couldn't resist and picked up a piece of spicy chicken. My mother quickly moved the dish in front of me. Fearing I couldn't reach it, Sarah loves spicy chicken the most. Mom made it especially for you. Eat up. The light in Alice's eyes dimmed. Seeing this, I took the whole plate, divided half for myself, and gave the other half to her. We both have a similar taste for meat. We truly are sisters. Everyone was surprised to hear me call her sister, especially Alice, whose mouth fell open in shock. This is a story with Alice as the main character. She is the real daughter misplaced by a wealthy family, while I am the imposter who took her place. Even though my parents know I'm not their biological child, they still love and cherish me. The condition for allowing Alice to come home was for the Duncan family to relinquish my guardianship and let me continue living as the wealthy family's daughter. Alice's rural family didn't even want to raise a daughter. They'd rather marry off 14-year-old Alice in exchange for her brother's bride price. My parents generously facilitated the adoption contract, and they were delighted to assist. Thus, my home remained my home, only now with an additional member. Alice, the biological daughter, malnourished and stunted, seemed like an outsider, in stark contrast to my slender and tall figure. After dinner, I went back to my room to study, and my mother came in to talk. Sarah, now that you suddenly have a sister, do you resent your father and me? Not at all. My mother was surprised by my straightforward response and cautiously probed further. Now that there's an extra person in the house, aren't you uncomfortable? Our house is 3,200 square meters. I barely notice an extra person. My mother began to cry. Do you know about your own origins and feel that the Duncans, uncle, and aunt are your real parents, and you don't acknowledge us anymore? Why would you think that? My mother took my hand. Ordinary families, even when a second child is born, it causes jealousy. You've been the most pampered since childhood, and now you're not fighting or fussing. Are you feeling alienated from us, worried that you're no longer our precious child? Seeing me speechless, my mother hurriedly explained. Sarah, you were raised by me from a young age. You've called me Mom for 14 years, and I've only acknowledged you as my child. No matter who it is, no one can make you feel wronged, and I certainly don't want you to feel scared or worried at home. Your father and I have discussed it, and if you don't like Alice, we can send her to a private school to live on campus. It will just be the three of us again, just like before. I sighed. From Alice's perspective, her foster parents did not love or care for her, and they raised her carelessly, even considering trading her for a dowry. Her real parents, although wealthy, treated her as if she didn't exist. It truly breaks one's heart. When I first read the story, I was infuriated by the mother character, unable to comprehend why she would be so harsh towards her own daughter, seemingly devoid of any maternal love. But when I put myself in Sarah's shoes, I realized that her actions were not devoid of love. In fact, it was quite the opposite. When her biological child came home, her first thought was to provide me with a strong sense of security and to affirm my place in the family. She might be Alice's antagonist, but to me, she is the best mother. I hugged her shoulders and told her, Mom, Uncle and Aunt Duncan never took care of me for even a day. If I had ended up with them, I would have been nothing more than a tool for barter. The love from nurturing surpasses that from giving birth. No matter what, you and Dad are my only parents. My mom is actually a tender-hearted woman. With tears in her eyes, she rushed to embrace me, saying, Let's hug. We hugged sweetly for a while before I held her shoulders and said seriously, But Alice is also your daughter. Mom avoided my gaze. She just left home to come here. You need to pamper her a bit. You pampered me for 14 years, but Alice missed out on those 14 years with you. She looked at me with a hint of gratitude. I gently pushed her and said, Go on, and it seemed like a huge weight had been lifted off her chest as she briskly walked to Alice's room with the quilt. Parental favoritism does exist, but often, the key factor is how the favored one utilizes that affection. The original story did not have a happy ending. After Alice died of stomach cancer, the male lead, in a delayed realization, went crazy for her, and our wedding was called off. I became depressed, my father's business went bankrupt, and my mother committed suicide. Although it's somewhat overly dramatic, I still believe in the law of karma. If Alice could have grown up happily, our little family wouldn't have ended up in such a dire situation. I knocked on my father's door. Let's transfer my sister to my school, so we can look out for each other. According to the original plot, against my strong opposition, she transferred to another elite private school and didn't come home for a year. Later, unable to keep up with her studies, she withdrew and ended up at my school, where I continued to bully her, leading her through a miserable adolescence. I helped her tweak the plot a bit, also allowing her to meet the male lead sooner. I remember, the male lead was from our school. When the holidays ended, Mom took Alice to handle her school admissions. As a transfer student, she wasn't in my class. Our class was either filled with children from wealthy families or true academic elites. After all, how else to balance the average grades? When I took out my textbooks, everyone around was astounded. My character was good at everything except studies. I was just in school to mingle. A little boy sucking on a lollipop clung to my shoulder. Babe, did you take the wrong meds today? I glanced at his hand on my shoulder. Are you my boyfriend? Yes. I looked away. Not after today. The boy was stunned. Are you sick? No. I casually flipped a page of the book. I want to get into the country's top university. Freak, he muttered. Sarah's gone crazy. She says she wants to get into the country's top university. I ignored the laughter around me. In the original story, my character later studied arts, went abroad after high school, and only returned years later, which set the stage for the female lead's tearful role as a substitute. But I'm different, not a speck of artistic talent in me, only aiming for top 1 university. In reality, I missed the admission by just 7 points, quite a pity. Now that I've turned into a young girl, of course, I'd retake the test. Early in the morning, I sat in the classroom assessing the difficulty of the current textbooks and the quality of the school's faculty. It seemed that the external conditions were secured, and handling junior high school content was relatively simple. After school at noon, I went to the building next door to look for Alice. My mom told me she was placed in class 10, but I couldn't find her in the classroom. I asked a few younger students who were on their way to lunch, and as soon as I mentioned looking for the new transfer student, their expressions turned evasive. I had a bad feeling and grabbed one to ask, "Where is she?" Cindy and the others took her to the restroom. My heart sank. If my role was the villain, Cindy was my lackey, always in the books helping my character bully Alice. I didn't expect Cindy to be so proactive. Without my prompting, she was already stirring up trouble. When I burst into the restroom, a few girls from class 10, led by Cindy, were kicking Alice on the floor. "What kind of bumpkin dares come to our school? How do you like this welcome gift?" I threw off my jacket and shoved Cindy's head into the sink. "Who are you calling a bumpkin? Sarah, what are you going crazy for? What's it to you?" I turned the tap on full blast and sprayed her face. "She's my sister, so how can it not concern me?" Alice, pinned to the ground, looked up, her eyes shining. We were all junior high girls. Fights meant pulling hair and scratching faces. I was outnumbered, and though I charged in fiercely, I was getting the worst of it. But as Cindy was about to slap me, Alice lunged and bit her wrist hard, drawing blood. Their homeroom teacher walked in on this scene. She took us all to the office. "Why are you fighting?" Cindy, playing the victim first, said, "Miss Jane, we were just greeting the new student." And Sarah suddenly started hitting people. "You call that a greeting?" I could hear the crying from the next building over. "Is class 10 always this welcoming?" I pulled up Alice's arm to show Miss Jane the bruises. Naturally, Miss Jane was biased towards her own students. Even if there was some misunderstanding, it must have been mutual. A fly won't sting an uncracked egg. "If you stumbled upon this, you should have sought a teacher immediately," I said. "Oh," and then turned to educate Alice. "Did you hear that? Miss Jane is teaching you here. A fly doesn't sting an uncracked egg. Next time you see something you don't like, just slap them right away. It's always the other side asking for it. It's fine if you leave them bruised all over as long as you strike first. Then you're the one in the right." Miss Jane's face fell. "Sarah, what kind of talk is that?" I'm just diligently following the teacher's guidance, repeating what you said. She wanted to argue more. But the guidance counselor and our teacher, Miss Kathy, came in to ensure I attended school. My dad had donated a significant amount of money to the school, and my mom was also very close with Miss Kathy. Naturally, they sided with me, and Cindy and her group each received a mark on their record. Leaving the office, Cindy glared at me furiously. Sarah, you actually have such a bumpkin relative and aren't even ashamed. She's my real sister, who here is the bumpkin. Cindy's family had money too. And she strutted around like she owned the place, but she was wary of me. It was as if I had slapped her. Biting people all over. Looks like I need to get a rabies vaccine. You better get a triple vaccine for a peaceful year. Cindy was so provoked she was about to hit me, but seeing me roll up my sleeves ready to fight back to the end, her friends quickly dragged her away. After all, no one wanted 2 marks on their record in one day. I debriefed with Alice. Do you know why they attacked you? Because I look too unsophisticated, Alice said, her eyes downcast and her speech hesitant. I sighed. No, it's because they are bad eggs. Alice was shocked, not expecting me to be so blunt. Didn't you hear what they said? That was their welcome gift to you, even if it wasn't you today. If there was another new student, they would have fought just the same. Any reason would do. In the future, when you encounter bad seeds, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Alice nodded vigorously. In the Duncan family, she was the only girl, and everything wrong was always her fault. No one ever told her that the problem wasn't with her. Looking into her puppy-like eyes, I couldn't help but pat her head. The malice in this world sometimes has no reason, and you can't avoid it. But when they come for you, you must fight back, make them pay a price, and let them know you're not to be messed with. If they think of bothering you again, they'll think twice. Constantly retreating only leads to stomach cancer. At the last sentence, Alice's eyes widened in confusion. Scientific research shows that bottling up anger can lead to stomach cancer, I said seriously. Alice, being a very sensible little girl, repeated this to herself, committing it to memory. As we walked downstairs, Mom arrived. She got out of the car and, crying, hugged me while Alice, feeling both awkward and envious, averted her gaze. Why did you end up fighting on the first day of school? I heard from your teacher Kathy. It was all because of Alice, Mom said, trembling as she touched the wounds on my hand. The student opposite has a grudge against me. Hearing that Alice is my sister, she started troubling her. Mom got really scared. How did you manage to provoke such bad students at school? How can I be at peace? It's okay. She was about to slap me, but Alice jumped up and bit her. Isn't that right, Alice? Mom burst into laughter. I didn't realize Alice was so tough, even looking out for her sister at school. But how did you end up getting hurt too? Let Mom have a look. Alice, feeling shy, scratched her head and was pulled into Mom's arms for her wounds to be examined. Her eyes were moist, filled with gratitude, perhaps feeling guilty towards Alice. Mom later took us to the hospital and made sure Alice was seen to first. As the doctor cleaned Alice's bruises, Mom helped lift her clothes. Oh, such a pretty little girl. Why so unclean? Her skin is all covered with dark dirt. While the doctor treated her wounds with iodine, he joked. I saw Mom frown deeply. She turned to look at me, seeking a kind of unspoken understanding. I avoided her gaze. Instead, I smiled reassuringly at a flustered Alice. It was as if she found a lifeline. Assured that I wasn't mocking her, she quietly lowered her head and continued with the treatment. When her injuries were a bit better, I took the opportunity of going out for a buffet to take her to a leisure bathhouse for the day, where a lady from the Northeast scrubbed her clean from head to toe, so shiny even her kneecaps gleamed. Then we went shopping for clothes. I saw her sighing in front of the mirror more than once, curiously peeking at Mom's skincare products. My attitude towards appearance is simple. If you care about it, then do something about it. Alice clearly needs this boost to her confidence, and it has nothing to do with age. Ironically, while we were out shopping, we ran into Cindy in her group. Cindy had mixed feelings about me, being both from wealthy families. She would have long imagined a kinship with someone like me if I hadn't come along. They would have become best friends smelling of the same scent, but because I fought her for Alice, she now harbored a love-hate feeling towards me. Right from the start, she rolled her eyes at Alice. Sarah, you must have a lot of free time on your hands to be walking a mongrel around town. No matter how you dress it up, a mongrel is still a mongrel. Alice's face turned red as she put down the lace-knit sweater she was holding, feeling ashamed of her own taste. I'm not really into fashion either. I took Alice and left the boutique, trailing behind Cindy. We might as well buy whatever Ms. Son buys. Cindy snorted with pride and strutted into Chanel, expertly browsing the bags. Alice, who had never been to a luxury store before and saw there was a line just to enter, started to feel overwhelmed. The security guard, adept at judging people, saw her young age and timid demeanor and impatiently said, "Are you coming in or not?" Alice was nearly in tears, unsure whether to nod or shake her head. Just then, a delighted voice came from inside. Miss Sarah, a stylish sales associate, SA, in high heels, came out to greet us. "Don't you usually come with your mother? What brings you here alone today?" I introduced Alice to her. "I'm here to buy clothes for my sister. Could you help her put an outfit together?" The SA warmly took Alice by the arm. "Of course. What would you like for afternoon tea inside?" Cindy watched, dumbfounded, as the SA escorted Alice into the VIP room. Thanks to my mom, who could easily spend hundreds of thousands in one night, all the luxury brand SAs on this floor knew me. Even my straightforward dad got valet parking service when he visited the mall. While Cindy and her friends crowded outside looking at bags, Alice sat inside with the SA kneeling to help her try on shoes. Alice had been staying at my place for a month and had gotten a bit plumper and fairer. Dressed in a little Western-style dress and with her hair simply styled, she looked like a completely different person, but her demeanor was still a bit off. She kept looking back at me like a frightened bird, each price tag piercing her heart like arrows. I casually pulled a card from my shirt pocket and placed it on the table. "This is the credit card Dad gave me. It has a monthly limit of 200,000. If it goes over, just charm him a bit, and he'll pay it off early." Then I took out a second card. "This is my allowance for the year. I don't remember exactly, but it's at least a few $100,000. You're a true heiress, with surely no less than me." I crossed my legs, looking at the doll-like reflection in the mirror. "Money is no issue, take whatever you like. That's how a princess is born." The confident, proud girl at that moment was the perfect footnote. When the SA came out smiling, arm in arm with Alice to check out, I walked up to Cindy, hands in my pockets. "Haven't decided yet. I think this classic CF looks quite nice." Cindy clenched her teeth. She probably came just to show off. Ordinary wealthy families wouldn't splurge like this on a young girl, but that's the nature of luxury stores, full of comparisons. Alice now stood a few steps away, fully outfitted and curiously examining the bags on the shelves, while Cindy, under my scrutiny, found herself in a difficult position. "Let's take this one." Cindy pointed at a small gold chain model, stiffly grunting. "After waiting so long, they don't even have a silver chain. Bring out the medium silver chain from your store." "It's my sister's first bag," I said, leaning on the counter and tapping the glass. In that moment, Cindy seemed as if struck by 1,000 arrows. "Sorry, but VIPs can access exclusive models." When they entered, Cindy was all airs and graces, and Alice was like a defeated dog, but by the time they left, their roles had subtly reversed. The comparisons among young girls still revolve around extravagance and vanity. A single bag, a single dress, could shake up years of ostentation, or establish unprecedented self-confidence. Mom was thrilled to see the transformed Alice, examining her from head to toe, repeatedly praising her good taste and the investment-worthy handbag she had purchased. There is no such thing as unconditional love in this world. Mom loves me because I am the little girl she has raised for 14 years. And also because I am as beautiful and clean as she is. We are a family, sharing the same lifestyle habits, along with some good and bad family culture. Alice is an outsider, and her integration process is inevitably accompanied by some growing pains, but I believe time will heal all wounds, especially with the help of money. After this stimulating event, Cindy had a realization. She mocked Alice as a useless country dog. "She is my mother's daughter. After all, why would she worry about not knowing how to spend money or dress up?" She sent me a sarcastic text message. "What's so great about having money? You should pay more attention to your sister's grades." Hearing the word grades from Cindy's mouth was comforting. When I first read the original text, I only had one thought. Do you people just fight, cause drama, fall in love, and have miscarriages every day without ever studying? However, when I went to Alice's room and forced her to show me her test papers, I realized the seriousness of the situation. Failing every subject is one thing, but But how on earth did you manage to score 18 in physics? I was completely baffled. Alice, standing with her hands behind her back, was just as baffled looking at the glaring 18. I stopped my mother, who was happily planning to take Alice to the beauty salon. You need to help Alice with her studies. Is Alice doing poorly in school? Mom asked warily. I hid the test paper behind my back. Not exactly. We don't know yet since the midterms haven't happened, but she feels she's falling behind in class. My mom knows how to handle money matters. She arranged for a renowned tutor to come home for lessons that same day. I signed my mom's name on Alice's test paper. Just this once, you need to at least pass the midterms. Alice sighed deeply, looking dispiritedly to the side. Hey, just how bad are your grades, heroine? I hastily arranged for her to catch up on lessons, and my life returned to normal. Just when I thought the drama had settled down, one day after school, I stumbled upon a fight in the alley behind the school. A group from the neighboring technical school was beating up one of our students. And I immediately ran back to inform the security guard. While leading the way, I suddenly remembered that this seemed like the male lead's entrance. I forgot what the male lead's specific name was. These torturous stories are all the same, with the male leads uniformly being heartless psychopaths, who can remember who is who. The original story recorded Alice's memories before her death, with the past interspersed in flashbacks throughout the text, and there was no record of their first meeting. However, it was mentioned in the text that the male lead was infatuated with his beloved because she had saved his life when he was a child. Just as he was being beaten to a critical state, Sarah suddenly appeared, like a ray of light illuminating his path. Thinking of this, I waved at Alice in front of the snack stand. Come here. Alice obediently ran over with a piece of pork loin in her mouth. There's a fight in the alley. Lead the security uncle there. Alice complied. Walking away with her backpack, it took me a while to realize I should have snatched her pork loin. What kind of heroine meets the male lead with her mouth full of grease? Totally improper. Before long, Alice came back, bouncing and saying the issue had been resolved and the security had dispersed the troublemakers. I subtly asked her how the male lead was, and she frowned, saying he got beaten up quite badly. His face was a mess, and he looked pitiful, all while munching on pork loin. Didn't you show any concern, little sister, considering her decade-long unrequited love in the original story? I silently went to the pharmacy next door to buy some iodine, bandages, and the like, and had her deliver them to him. Alice, sis can only help you so much. It's not that I am a purist for male and female leads, but just in case she falls for that scoundrel again, she doesn't need to be so deeply tortured in love, and could perhaps part ways more normally. About a week later, a new student transferred to our class, a fairly handsome guy with a stern face that seemed to warn off strangers. He spent his days either sleeping or skipping class, and after the midterms, he got into a fierce fight with his desk mate. It was like a storm had passed through. I'm tall and sit in the second to last row. As the two boys wrestled in front of me, I silently reached out to steady my Mickey Mouse cup at the corner of the desk and continued reading my paper. After a while, our teacher Kathy rushed over upon hearing the commotion, scolded them both, and then called me out, pointing at the new student. Sarah, could you sit next to Lucas? The tall boy met my gaze with an indifferent twist of his face. It's like this, Sarah, your grades have improved significantly recently, placing you among the top of your year. By sitting with Lucas, you could share your study methods with him, helping to lead by example. The results weren't out yet, but MS. Kathy seemed even more cheerful than usual, probably because my improvement was indeed significant enough that her look at me was full of appraisal. It's normal for teenagers to suddenly get a grip overnight and then excel academically. Still, I have to be cautious that they don't think I'm possessed and take me to a temple for an exorcism, especially since my personality really doesn't fit my outward appearance. Lately, even my mom looks at me with a bit of reverence, for safety. I nodded, okay. After we both returned to the back of the classroom, I patted the spot beside me. Lucas, move your desk over here. Lucas bristled. Why don't you move yours over there? That works too. I quickly packed up all my study materials. I'm ready, you move it. Lucas looked puzzled. I can't move it, I said, feigning frailty as I lowered my eyelids. Everyone's gaze shifted to Lucas. The school had its social hierarchy. He could fight with boys, that was cool. But not helping a girl with her desk would make him look bad in everyone's eyes. Lucas was silent for a moment, then reluctantly pulled out his hands from his pockets and moved my desk. Though he was tough, he cared about his image. Once seated, I said to him, "Lucas, I hope we can get along peacefully. I don't hit girls." Lucas coldly grabbed his water cup. "I hit boys." Lucas spit out his water in shock, staring at me. I grinned, showing my teeth. "I once took on a group of tough girls from class 10 in the bathroom," Lucas remarked. "That wasn't comparable, as boys and girls differ physically in strength." "Well said." I nodded, opened a biology book to a chapter on the differences between the sexes, and placed it before him. Lucas's handsome face turned red as he looked at the diagrams of reproductive systems, then coughed to cover his embarrassment. "This is a Chinese class." I propped my chin on my hands and smirked. "You're not listening anyway." After a standoff, as I tried to push the biology book closer to him, Lucas reluctantly pulled out his Chinese textbook. "Stop messing around." The Chinese teacher, used to seeing Lucas fight and sleep in class, was surprised to see him taking out his textbook properly. She pushed up her glasses and then called on me to stop chatting with him. "Did you hear that?" Lucas muttered softly. "Don't talk to me." I sipped my tea. "We'll see how you do." That day the results were posted, and I made it into the top 10 of our grade. Alice, through relentless effort, improved her physics score from 18 to 16, and her performance in other subjects also improved, with Chinese still being her best subject. I was racking my brain on how to keep this a secret when Miss Jane had already called home. After hanging up the phone, my dad was furious. "What kind of stuff are you studying? Spending tens of thousands every month on tutoring fees. Even a dog wouldn't perform this poorly." Alice was holding her report card, tears streaming down her face, coming from the countryside. "Her basics are just too weak. There's nothing we can do," my mom said, sipping coffee in her silk pajamas. "Is that an excuse? If her basics are poor, haven't we provided her with extra lessons? Her teachers say she's often lost in thought during class, not paying attention at all." Mom agreed. "Even with the tutoring, we're paying a fortune for these tutors. And she still doesn't study properly. Asking her to attend extra sessions is like asking for her life." At this, Alice looked up as if shocked, her eyes filled with sorrow, but facing her fuming parents, she moved her lips but said nothing. Dinner turned into a critique session for Alice. In the end, Mom concluded, "Forget it. If she's not cut out for it, then she shouldn't bother. She's just a girl. After all, dressing well and marrying a good husband is more useful than a high degree. But she still needs to study." I said quietly, "You keep studying if you love it so much." Compared to Alice, whatever I said was correct because I was among the top 10 in my grade. Mom was in a good mood and served me a chicken leg. "Look at you, studying so hard recently. You've even lost weight. Tell Mom what you want to eat. I'll make it for you." "When is your parent-teacher meeting?" Dad asked me. "Not US." Mom quickly realized what he was implying. "Miss Kathy has already invited me. I've even planned what to say. I'll go to Sarah's, you go to Alice's." Dad immediately said he was busy that day. They laughed and joked around, while Alice slipped away from the dining table to quietly wash her hands at the sink. I approached her. "Is there anything you want to talk to me about?" Alice didn't look at me and just shook her head indifferently. "My room is just over there," I said, and after leaving her, I went online and bought a home surveillance camera, placing it in a corner of Alice's study, hidden behind some books, hardly noticeable unless you looked closely. The next day, the tutor arrived as scheduled. Mom kept apologizing to him, complaining about how foolish Alice was and how much trouble she caused. The bald middle-aged man politely exchanged pleasantries. As I passed by with tea, he looked me up and down. "This is my eldest daughter." "Aha, the sisters could take lessons together," he said amiably. "I'm in the top 10 of my grade," I replied, ignoring his surprise and walked back to my room to turn on my computer. Soon, an argument erupted in the hallway. The screen showed Alice hesitating to enter the room, embarrassed. Mom scolded her, then pushed her inside. I shook my head and continued watching, sipping my hot tea. Sure enough, there was something off about the bald tutor. He sat right next to Alice instead of across from her as one would expect in a teaching scenario. While explaining, his elbow kept accidentally brushing against Alice's chest, and she tried to dodge him. I dialed 911. As I was reporting, the situation escalated. Because Alice was dodging, the tutor outright touched her breast and then pinned her against the wall. Reaching between her legs, I sprinted over just as Alice, crying, burst out the door and ran away. Her face flushed as she glanced back at me. The tutor, taken aback, rubbed his hands nervously. "Ah, your sister's mind, really, she is quite slow. No matter what I say, I end up crying. You're not exactly the brightest either." I chuckled. My sister isn't even 14 yet. With our family situation, we still managed to get the best lawyer. His expression froze, and he grabbed his bag, ready to flee. I couldn't be bothered with him and turned to check on Alice, who was at the sink rinsing her mouth, her face streaked with tears. I looked at her curiously. "What's wrong?" Alice frowned slightly but remained silent. I glanced at my watch and started to walk away. I hadn't gotten far when Alice ran out and called after me, "Sister." It seemed like calling out took all the courage she had. Just then, a police siren sounded outside, and her eyes widened as if she were still in a dream. I walked over and patted her head. "Well done." Alice's expression went from frightened to aggrieved, and then she burst into loud sobs in my arms. She must have been harassed for some time, but her inherent rule of life was to endure in silence. Raised to be an obedient lamb, she knew that raising her voice would only bring beatings. In unfamiliar places, she didn't know whom to trust or rely on, increasingly depending on her instincts and hiding her own voice, until she cried out for the first time in my arms. She finally realized she wasn't living in a sheep pen, and not everyone in the world was a cold bystander. Asking for help is the most precious first step. The bald man was soon taken to the police station, and this time my father, furious, immediately went there with a team of lawyers. My mother finally understood why Alice's grades were getting worse and was overwhelmed with guilt. Crying with her, while Alice was comforting Mom, I went to the bald man's school's forum and posted the news of his arrest. Other victims started commenting, accusing him of being a repeat offender. I contacted each of them, gathered materials for a joint lawsuit, and with the help of our lawyers and our home's video records, the bald man was ultimately prosecuted for rape. But that's another story for later. 3 days after the incident, Alice knocked on my door, holding her textbooks. "Sister, can you teach me physics?" Hey, what country girl doesn't want to study? I talked with Mom, and since Alice now had a psychological barrier against tutoring, I'd take over for a while. Mom, still shaken, felt very guilty. As long as she's happy, it doesn't really matter whether she studies or not given our family's conditions. I told Alice, "Indeed, our family is wealthy, and you might be standing in Rome, but that has nothing to do with whether you study or not. Even though you can live a carefree life now, you can't guarantee your parents will always be there to support you. Besides, the higher your intelligence, the more you can experience and the more choices you have, which will broaden the depth and breadth of your life." I thought this might be too complex for the current Alice, but she nodded without hesitation. "I want to be like you," implying she didn't want to end up like Mom. Well, perhaps that's the role model effect. Since the young girl had the ambition, I set her a task. I asked her to analyze the bald man's case, to understand what it was really about, how it should be handled, and she could research anything related to it. Alice never expected that instead of memorizing books and solving problems, I'd allow her to surf the internet and use her phone, but this was a major event directly related to her, and she spent every day seriously researching online. She had read a heap of books. I praised her and gave her more reading lists, encouraging her to collect information and build mind maps to further expand her knowledge base. She could research anything she liked, such as the causes of stomach cancer. Alice just looked at me silently without any comments. Besides, I asked her to come to me every evening after self-study to tackle some important homework. I borrowed an empty classroom from Ms. Kathy because our learning style was too direct and unique, which might disturb others. One day, Alice came to have lunch with me and was surprised to see Lucas, who had just been in a fight, and exclaimed. I asked her why she exclaimed, and she said, "That's the student who was beaten up in the alley that day." Lucas glanced at her coldly, clearly dissatisfied with the phrase, "was beaten up." I just quietly sipped my tea. Wow, the male lead is right beside me. I curled my finger and knocked on Lucas' table. "Come out with me tonight." "What for?" Lucas asked coolly, deliberately not looking directly at me. "In case my sister can't get close to you," I thought to myself and smiled at him. "To give you some extra lessons." Lucas lowered his eyelids. "Can't we do it in the classroom? Too many people." Lucas remained silent for a long while, then turned his face away with a grunt. Annoying. That evening, he entered the empty classroom with his textbooks and was startled to see Alice. "Who is she?" My sister, I pointed to the seat next to Alice. Sit. Lucas chuckled rebelliously and pulled out the chair next to me, dismantling the desk loudly. You really have a temper? It was my sister who reported your beating that day. You should thank Alice. I facilitated this historic meeting between the male and female leads. Alice scratched her head enthusiastically. No need to thank me. My sister asked me to go, and she even bought medicine for you. I froze. Alice, you're not going to win him over like that. You know, Lucas glanced at me, unusually serious. I know. What do you know? You know nothing. After a semester of matchmaking, I don't know if Lucas and Alice sparked any romance, but their academic performance improved dramatically, which pleased me. Actually, that was just a byproduct. My goal was to have them absorb a lot of information and then deduce general principles from it. That's the essence of learning. Repeating this process makes them better at learning itself. This speeds up their ability to learn anything new, and the same principle applies to solving problems. Simply put, their brains work better. After their brains work better, the chances of them being love-struck should decrease. It's a roundabout way of helping, but as ideal as my thoughts were. The world seemed to disagree. After the winter break, Alice's whereabouts became unpredictable. She used to always talk about her elder sister, but now she locked herself in her room all afternoon, not coming out. When she did come out, her face flushed and her eyes shifting. She said she was going to the movies with classmates. I told her I was going to take a nap, and she breathed a sigh of relief, pretending not to notice her relief. I saw her out and then texted Lucas on WeChat. Are you dating Alice? Lucas texted, ? Lucas texted, say again, who am I dating? I texted, my sister. Lucas did not reply. When I tried to message him again, he had already blocked me. TSK, young boys are so difficult. If they don't tell me, I don't care. Let them date. This might just be where the world line ends. The male and female leads were fated to be intertwined. If this happened sooner than expected, and you asked whether I supported it, of course, I would. After all, being young. It's not easy to get stomach cancer, but soon, I realized things weren't quite as I had expected. When the next semester started, Alice walked into our evening self-study classroom with a boy. Her face flushed as she introduced him. Sister, this is Leo from our class. Can he join us for self-study? Before I could respond, Lucas, sitting next to me, seriously said, yes. The boy quickly handed him a bottle of Coca-Cola. Greetings, Brother Sue. Sit over there, don't be shy. Lucas accepted the bribe, nodded his head towards the seat next to Alice, and added naturally, introduce yourself. Alice soon had her parents called in. Miss Jane seemed to wish her ill, constantly making veiled criticisms in class about her seducing boys, and moved her seat to the first row, closest to the podium, isolating her and calling it a measure against a sly vixen. Dad also scolded her. You're too young to be thinking about dating. I know about studying too. Alice said softly, you can't wait until you're old to date either. I intervened. Are you dating too? Dad asked incredulously. Not at all. I plan to make a bold statement. I'm not getting married or having children. I'll be double income, no kids. Dad's expression froze instantly. Mom, who was painting her nails at the side, was also stunned. They realized that compared to Alice, I was the real ticking time bomb, and they spent the whole evening trying to persuade me. Seeing it was about time, I reassured them not to worry, as I was still young and might change my mind in a couple of years. Mom and Dad breathed a sigh of relief and reverently escorted me back to my room. Dad seemed to want to scold Alice too, but holding back as he looked at me. Compared to me, her sister, Alice was such a vibrant young girl. He took a few steps away, then turned back, and said seriously to Alice, just in case, you guys, unable to continue. He signaled with his eyes for Mom to take over. Mom was also embarrassed. Yes, you guys are still young. Alice wouldn't, I said indifferently, glancing at her. Boys her age aren't impressive, nothing exciting. She knows what's what. Alice nodded in agreement. Mom and Dad's faces twisted in anguish, but since we all appeared so calm, they left as if sleepwalking, tightly holding each other's hands. Alice later gathered all her experiences in class and wrote a sincere complaint letter, which she sent to the Education Bureau. Miss Jane was soon transferred from her position, and Alice became the discipline commissioner in class, patrolling the floors every day wearing a red armband and a stern face. It said that Cindy would avoid her whenever she saw her. I was relieved that during the entire process, I only made 2 corrections to the complaint letter. Youth always flies by swiftly. A few years later, I successfully got into Wadayaku. And Alice went to the Agricultural Science Institute to research rural issues, but her relationship with Leo ran into trouble. When they could finally hold hands freely among crowds, Leo cheated. She flew to his city and saw him kissing a delicate junior, who told her she was too domineering and not gentle enough, and that he preferred someone more dependent. Alice was in pain for a long time, constantly reflecting on what might have gone wrong in her first love. By the time I found out she had already developed depression, I accompanied her to see a doctor. They come and go. I made sure she took her medications and asked her to move in with me. Sometimes I wonder if I've made the right choices all these years, Alice said, sipping her drink by the floor-to-ceiling windows. Why is it that despite everything I've given, I still don't deserve to be loved? I do love you, I told her, but in our parents' eyes, you will always be the better daughter. Even though I'm their biological child, they care more about you. Alice looked away. I've always known it, but I love you. Alice shivered slightly. You also love many others, Dad, Mom, me, we are all your family. She seemed to be shivering, clutching her chest. I just wish there was someone for whom I am the utmost and only priority in their heart. You've always had that, I said, looking into the mirror opposite. There was a young girl, lost and drunk, staring back at herself in surprise. We can't control the world or other people, we can't force it, but at least we can love ourselves, I said, looking out at the starlit night outside the window. Taking a sip of my drink, I knew what was tormenting her, the pain of not being a soulless canary, of not being so frail that she only had Leo, of not sacrificing her dignity for Leo. When she was deciding on her university applications, she had struggled between her dreams and him. She made her choice, and now she had lost him. She didn't realize that even if she spent 10 years with her heart and eyes only for Leo, it would ultimately not end well with him. Yes, I later realized that Leo was the real protagonist, because normal people don't have that kind of family background. With my intervention, in this world, Leo and I became mere acquaintances. While Alice achieved her unattainable dream from the original story, becoming Leo's first love, but the greatest love can still turn into plain white rice. Do you remember what I told you on your first day of school when you fought with Cindy and the others? I asked her, as she rested her head on my lap and I combed her hair. She drifted into her memories. I said, they are bad eggs. When you encounter bad eggs, don't blame yourself. She murmured in her sleep, think about it. Is he really that good? Is he really considerate, gentle, and loyal? Someone who makes you better? Someone who can make you happy? No, he's not, of course, he's not. He would seek a substitute to deceive himself after missing out, selfishly immerse himself in self-pity, ignoring the sacrifices made by the substitute, and after being caught cheating, he would shift all the blame onto Alice. Young love can be beautiful even when mistaken, but it's best left in the tender memories of youth. It's not that you're unworthy, it's that he doesn't deserve you. Don't obsess over whether he loves you or not. Ask yourself, do you love yourself? Alice's frown gradually relaxed, and then, as if a great weight had been lifted, tears streamed down her face. Yes, yes, one cannot know how far they've come without looking back. Even with a few thorns, nothing can stop a path adorned with flowers. She can, with a clear conscience, tell that little girl, curled up in a rural field, eyes wide with fear, I am the adult you wanted to become. She has ultimately been true to herself, and as for men, you just haven't experienced it. That's why you're fascinated by it. Just as she finished speaking, her phone rang. Wiping away her tears, she answered the call and heard a deep, pleasant voice say, hello little fairy, I heard you're feeling down tonight. May I cheer you up for a bit? Alice, online. Young guys are available to chat with for 5 yuan for half an hour. I winked at her slyly, keeping my skills and reputation hidden. Considering Alice is my dear sister, of course I chose a slightly pricier and better option for her. Thinking of it as a mental reset, I believe she'll soon realize that as a single, wealthy woman, she doesn't need to drown her sorrows in alcohol. She can cry in her Maserati instead. I reminded her to make time for a gastroscopy at the hospital before I put on my trench coat and went downstairs, where Lucas was waiting. His presence ominously intense. Your sister said you hooked her up with a young guy. I froze mid-step. She's heartbroken. You bear a lot of the responsibility for that. After all, you were the one who approved Leo. Lucas snorted. I've already beaten him up. So why do you have so many young guys contacts? I don't have many young guys contacts. I just skillfully utilized social media. How did you even know there are young guys on social media offering to cheer people up? He stepped closer, pinning me against the wall, displeased. I'm a well-informed person. Lucas pressed close, his eyes deep as the stars. Sarah, stop beating around the bush with me. I've been waiting for you, for many years. At this moment, this minor character transformed into the most important person in the world. Alright, I accept your proposal. What? What? I was just asking if you could be my boyfriend. That's fine, you can be my boyfriend then. Wait. Can I really marry you? You've already thought about marrying me. I thought you were proposing, so you just accepted me that easily. What's the big deal? If it doesn't work out, we can always get a divorce, I said casually. Suddenly, the previously shy Lucas burst out with a terrifying intent to kill. Today, I too am being hunted by my fiancé. Such is the simple, dull life of a wealthy heiress. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.